right, good morning, Greene County. How are you? Everybody doing? It's very, very slanted to this side. I've never seen this before, so that's interesting. My name is Julie Austin. I'm the Director of Youth and Family Programming with the Juvenile Office, and this is
Stacy Denney. I am the Director of Case Management with the Juvenile Office.
And so we're going to spend a little time this morning just telling you a little bit about the Juvenile Office. And we're really kind of pulling out a few main projects that we're working on right now that the community can be involved in, and that we're really proud of the work that our teams are doing. And so we will get that started off with just a little bit of talk about our organizational structure. So over the last 3 years, we've completely reorganized the reporting structure of the Juvenile Office. And that was because we had, I think Bill had 17 direct reports. And that really resulted in a lot of silos, 17 different interpretations of information going out. So a lot of miscommunication. And what we did was try to reorganize into a really nimble structure that focuses on the key services that we provide to the community so that we can then have a more collaborative and informative kind of process going forward where everybody's working better together. And so as you can see here, our mission: empowering youth, equipping families, restoring victims, and building safe communities. That's kind of the lens through which we look for all of the work that we do. And we have administrative services. I think everyone knows Jill. She's a lot of times the liaison. And she's our Director of Administrative Services. We have a Director of Quality Services. Stacy's Youth Case Management. Brittany O'Brien is Legal Services. Rachel Hogan is Quality Services. I'm Youth Programming. Chelsea Ortiz is Family Court Services. And then Ashley Montgomery is Clinical Services. And we will jump into the right direction. I'll just keep jumping. So this is just kind of the layout, and we'll go through a little bit more of that. This will be available, so that has all of the directors' information for you and what kind of comes up under each of the different departments. Stacy's going to talk a little bit about case management.
All right. So I don't know if people know, in the state of Missouri, we have positions called deputy juvenile officers. And so they are kind of an in-between law enforcement, prosecutor. It's our job as juvenile officers to be able to take information from law enforcement or parents coming in and presenting information to us to make determinations about what's the best next step for that youth and family that we're working with. So I'm going to go through and talk about how those positions look a little bit different in some different units in case management. So for our intake unit, we have 3 deputy juvenile officers, a supervisor, and some support staff in that unit. So those officers intake all of the information that we get. So for delinquency or law violations, we can take that information from law enforcement. They will submit a police report to our office, and we have officers that will look over that information. They'll work with our legal unit to determine if it's legally sufficient, meaning that we have all the information we would need to take that into court and that there's actually a law that's been broken. They will also collect information on abuse and neglect cases. So we receive that information from Children's Division as well as law enforcement. So Children's Division can get involved with a family when there are allegations of abuse or neglect against their children. And they may provide services within the home to keep that family unified. But whenever they decide that that child is no longer safe to remain in that home, that is when juvenile officers get involved, and then we start the court process of having them removed from their home. A lot of the work that comes out of the intake unit is kind of liaison work within the community, collecting information, talking to a lot of different agency partners. They are really the front door of our office. They are so important to all of the work that we do because they're making sure that we get all of that information accurate and in a position that all of the other juvenile officers can work with it from there. So then we have our abuse and neglect unit. So all of those DJOs take those cases once those children have been removed from their home, and generally after our judge has also basically agreed that they should stay out of the home. So their role in the case is to kind of make sure that that family has their rights and due process followed throughout the court case. So we work in tandem with Children's Division, and they're going to be the ones that are really working with that family, making sure that they're getting services and referrals. And our officers are really making sure that that court case gets handled and gets handled well and in the best interest of the family. Our law status officers are going to be handling all of those law violations that get presented to our office. So all of those are going to come from law enforcement, and they're going to be reviewed by our legal team to state that they are legally sufficient. So again, just meaning that we have all of the information, evidence, elements of a crime. If we needed to take it in front of the judge, we would be able to do that. We do have a couple of different levels of supervision. So we can do something that's called an informal adjustment, which is kind of just like unsupervised probation. So we just don't take them in front of the judge. We basically let those families kind of volunteer with following through some services, and we can usually get those cases closed quite a bit faster as well. Then we also do have kind of your more traditional track, taking those cases in front of the judge, offering them formal probation, all the way up to a commitment to the Division of Youth Services, which is a treatment-focused program throughout the state of Missouri, if we no longer feel like community-based services are appropriate for that youth. Lastly, we have our diversion unit, which is essentially our prevention unit. So they can handle those cases that are maybe first-time offense of a youth. So we don't want to jump those kids into the court system, because we know that once those kids get deeper into the system, going in front of the judge, having the potential of being placed in detention, it's more likely that they will actually come back into the system. So we like to offer a lot of preventative and kind of upstream services. So we, in our diversion unit, we also offer something called a parental assistance form. So that means that parents can actually just come into our office and let us know that they're having issues with their youth, and we'll have an officer work with them to try to get those services in place before we're even receiving information from law enforcement. So really trying to get those services in place before they're having that contact with law enforcement, and kind of then starting the system a little bit deeper for them.
Okay. If I can go the right direction, I will never go the right direction. That will be it. All right. So Stacy probably won't say this, but I will tell you, she is the heart of the juvenile system, her and her team. Everything that we do at the juvenile office is going to go through an officer. So the culture that she's building, the leadership that she's building, the team that she's building is really at the heart of what we do. And they have just done an amazing job. You won't find a more dedicated group of people that love the kids that they work with, as you will in the case management office.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the juvenile office as a whole came together, I don't know, late 1800s, long time ago, based on the gut feel that kids are different than adults, right? There wasn't a lot of science behind it, but just observationally, people felt like, hey, maybe these kids can't make the same decisions that adults can make. And so the juvenile office came into being, and then after that, we've had a tremendous amount of brain science and developmental science that has come behind that decision to support the fact that kids don't make the same decisions that adults do. Their brain doesn't even finish developing until they're 25. So it's really important to have a juvenile office that can come beside a kiddo, walk with them, and the majority of our kids will make one bad decision and then go on about their life and stop making bad decisions. We won't have everybody raise their hand that's made a bad decision. But I know I had an interesting childhood at times and turned out okay. So it's just really important to have those juvenile officers with the families. The next thing we want to talk about, I said we'd talk a little bit about our different projects that we're doing in the different divisions. So Ashley Montgomery runs our clinical services. She couldn't be here today, But her team will do case plan reviews with all those officers and make sure that they're thinking about all of the mental health aspects of a kiddo and their family. They also do family treatment court and celebrating families, which Stacy's going to tell us more about. And then we are also able to provide at no cost individual and family therapy to our kids and their families. And we've seen tremendous impact from families going from I can't live with my kid anymore to, things are going really, really well. We went on vacation. My kid bought the whole family ice cream the other day was a recent story. And that was from a family who didn't want to live together anymore 6 months ago. So the work that's being done is really important in clinical services, and particularly family treatment court.
Yeah, so like I talked a little bit about earlier with our abuse and neglect unit. So those are the cases that our office works where the parents have done something where we have decided that those children are no longer safe to be in the home with them. So family treatment court is sort of a subset of those cases. So it is a kind of an informal staffing style of court. So we bring those families in quite a bit more often. They come in every Wednesday, and we have a whole team that wraps around them. So we have a lot of different positions that have smaller caseloads, that have more specialized education and experience to be able to work those cases. And they do a lot of different training and education for our judge and the caseworkers that have those, working with a lot of different treatment facilities. So if you want to go to the next slide. So the family treatment court is revolved around those cases where we have substance use as part of the issue in the home. It's a really, really high issue here in Greene County. It's actually the #1 allegation that's listed on one of our abuse and neglect petitions. And we average about 750 kids in care in just Greene County alone all the time. That's a pretty basic number for us to have. It ebbs and flows a little bit, but that's sort of a standard average of what we see. So as you can tell, we have a lot of families that we are dealing with. And when substance use is the #1 allegation on a petition, we really want to be able to target that and look at that as a root cause and figure out what additional services we can put in place for those families. So to be in our family treatment court, there needs to be substance use as well as another mental health issue going on with the family. So they are referred to that program and they go through an assessment process. And then they can be admitted to the court. So the parents in those cases are going to be in substance use treatment alongside the kind of additional court services that we're going to ask of them to do. So they're going to be seeing drug screens. They may be in residential substance use treatment. They are going to be continuing with outpatient treatment. We're also really, really proud to have peer support specialists as a part of that program. And they are a very, very fundamental reason that that program is successful. So peer specialists are kind of what they sound like. They are people that are in recovery that may have dealt with the abuse and neglect court system previously and that bring that personal lived experience to come alongside those families and help them feel understood, have somebody that has kind of been in their shoes before that can relate to them versus having to work with somebody who may have never experienced any of that that's still telling them what to do. And so our peer support specialists are able to provide transportation. They can get them to different meetings. They work all kinds of crazy hours, making sure that people get to all of their recovery supports, making sure that they get to court, making sure that they are aware and available for any drug screens that they need to make, offering different supports that are just kind of based on whatever the needs of that family are at that time. So one of the biggest things that our family treatment court offers is a program called Celebrating Families. So it is an evidence-based program that we were able to bring in. It's 16 weeks, so it's a pretty big commitment for those families as well as the volunteers that support that program. So we are able to offer dinner to the families that come in, as well as a group for the parents and groups for the kids. So we're providing that education to those kids about what's going on, what they may be seeing happening with their parents, kind of what the long-term impact is going to be, as well as offering different skills and supports to the whole family in separate groups, and then bringing them together to kind of look at and utilize those skills together. So we are always looking for volunteers to help with that program. We are getting ready to start our next cohort in August. So if anybody is interested in helping to support that program, and that can look like volunteers for group, it can also look like we are always looking for support for those meals. So we send out meal trains to let people sign up and either bring food in, have it delivered by gift cards. So if anybody would be interested in helping to support that program, you're welcome to reach out to either of us, or Ashley Montgomery's contact information is on this PowerPoint. I think there's another slide on FTC.
I think just
There's
reach
our
out to
contact
Ashley.
information.
And Ashley Armstrong is the program manager for Family Treatment Court and also does an amazing job. This would be an awesome opportunity for different departments to volunteer to bring a meal for each of the weeks that are happening. They've really struggled with the volunteer aspect of this and getting it staffed. But the results that they've seen are really, really amazing. They do have a Facebook page. I think it's the Greene County Family Treatment Court. I think if you type that in the search, you'll find it. But they have testimonials out there. They have photos of the work that they've been doing. You can come hold babies if that's your passion. There's a lot of different ways to help, but they're just doing amazing work in the community. And I probably did this out of order. We probably should have talked about quality services at the very beginning, but Rachel Hogan heads up our quality services. She has a continuous quality improvement program that she's putting throughout the office. Her team also does our grant management and data management and reporting. And what Rachel has been able to do, which is really unique in Missouri and we're finding across the country, is to build a data set for us to really have data-driven decisions and for us to really be able to drill into the work that we're doing and find out what works and what doesn't. And that's provided a tremendous ability for us to, like that last bullet says, fail fast and course correct. So as you know, working with humans is gray and difficult and challenging. And so whatever you can bring to that process helps. And if it measures, it gets done. And so we're just finding a lot of value. And we're actually, Rachel and Bill are presenting across the country on the work being done here in Greene County. So there's a lot to be proud of in the juvenile office, and Rachel's team is part of that. So a few ways, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but we use the PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act model. So what are we trying to accomplish? How will we know that it's getting better? And then based on those results, what changes will we make? And that's just a continual process. You never reach the end of the PDSA. You're just always improving and always getting better, always getting new information, new research, new practices, and just in that continual cycle of improvement. But having that team there asking us those questions makes sure that we're never just doing something because that's the way it's always been done. This is our data cycle that takes us from question to answer. So what is the question you're trying to ask? What is the data that you have around that question? How do you organize that and analyze that and then report that out? Who wants to read this? So the logic model is one thing that each department is working to do. It makes you say, what is the problem you're trying to solve? How are you going to solve that? And then you go through really methodically and say, what are all the inputs into your process? What are all the outputs? What are all the outcomes that you're looking for? And how do you measure those? So again, it's just giving you a way to kind of methodically look at processes that can be really complicated and gray and hard to kind of break down, and it gives you kind of the framework to do that. And then out of that, we have monthly dashboards. Again, this PowerPoint will be available where you can scroll in and make it a little bit bigger. But on a monthly basis, we're able to go through and in each of our departments look and say how many cases are coming in, how many are going out, what are the trends that we're seeing, where do we need to kind of put our resources and our focus. And then we have, that's another monthly dashboard, and then we have annual reports that come out of Rachel's group. That's available to the public. That really, again, just highlights all the work that's being done in the juvenile office. Doing good. All right. So data-driven decision-making coupled with change management transforms practice. Rachel is a great resource. She loves to talk about data. She loves to talk about spreadsheets. She would love to hear from you if you want to kind of put this into practice in your area. I'm sure that she would be happy to hear from you and talk about what she's doing in our office. All right, youth and family programming, that's what falls under my purview. So we have the Academy. That's a day school program that we run in partnership with Springfield Public Schools. So kids who are struggling in school, haven't been to school in a really long time, maybe are suspended or expelled, can come to our school. They really get one-on-one coaching and mentorship in our program, along with equine therapy and music therapy and all kinds of different things. A recent activity that we were able to do, our music therapist husband runs Silver Dollar City's entertainment arm, the whole thing. And so the Walindas, tightrope walkers are at SDC and reached out. Our music therapy director was talking about the work she does for Greene County, and he wanted to give back. So he came down here a couple of weeks ago and did a tightrope training for a group of our kids. It was 2 inches off the ground, so not super dangerous. But they will go tomorrow to SDC and get a backstage review of that show and get to go and see what he does and how he does that. And so we're really, really thankful for that. So we have some amazing partners in the community that really invest in our kids. And I will just tell you, we work with amazing kids and amazing families. We have families who are going through really, really hard times and kids who have made really, really dumb decisions. But once you get to know them, they are kids and they are hilarious, and they just don't think ahead because, you know, they don't have that part of the brain yet. But if you ever wanted to spend time with kids, we are there. We also have the secure juvenile detention. Now that's where kids go if we deem that they're a safety risk to the community, and they're able to go and be in a secure environment. Again, we're able to provide therapy. We do physical. They get a doctor's visit every week. They are also in SPS classrooms, so they get their education continued. And we're really just kind of starting the process. The secure detention is not something a kid would be like sentenced to for a length of time. They're just there temporarily while they go through the adjudication process and either go on probation and get care through Stacy's group, or perhaps go to Division of Youth Services, which is a state agency. But again, the whole focus of the juvenile office is really to come alongside kids and families and help them kind of get on the right track. We have one juvenile officer in programming that does our youth empowerment programs and our high-risk victims. So she runs a multidisciplinary team in Greene County for kids who are at great risk of trafficking, and just helps identify resources and therapists and make sure they don't fall off the radar, that we're all talking about them, that there's a lot of information sharing between law enforcement and children's division and the juvenile office, and she does an amazing job. And then the final thing is community collaboration, which is what we'll focus on today. So the juvenile office, about a year ago, went and sat in the emergency room with a kiddo from detention who was in a mental health crisis for a week. And we sat in the ER with a kid 24/7 for a week waiting for mental health placement. And that is not unusual. And that is still happening. And it's happening with Children's Division, it's happening with detentions, it's happening across the state and across the country. And so we came back and said, you know what, this isn't working, and we've got to get people together to try to work on that. So we started calling the CEOs of Cox, Mercy, Lakeland, Perimeter, Burl, anybody, any phone number we could find, we called. And we said we need to meet and get together. And what we did was put together a youth medical and mental health collaborative that's now been meeting quarterly for over a year. We have hospitals, law enforcement, behavioral health, DYS, CD, a lot of people, schools, school counselors. There's over 50 team members that come together on a quarterly basis to talk about it. And we do have subcommittees that are focusing on our 3 key objectives. So late last year, we tried to come up with 3 objectives and we came up with 6. We then narrowed that, split the baby and said 3 key objectives and 3 worthy goals. So we've got subcommittees for our key objectives. The first is early intervention. So a lot of our schools came together and said, hey, we need more ways to get kids at a really young age into care and help and services, maybe starting at even as young as 4th grade. So this subcommittee is going to focus on what are those resources that we have in the community that we can make available. We also said we need much more pro-social kind of activities that are low cost for our teenage kids. A lot of the things, even at schools, take quite a bit of money, transportation, parents who work standard hours, and our kids just don't have that. And so, I want somebody to start an intramural sports league in Springfield for high school kids that, maybe they don't want to be competitive, they just need somewhere to go, and some people to kind of invest in them and spend time with them. So we're looking at that through the early intervention subcommittee. And then we have the crisis intervention, bridging the gap. So those kids who can't get into mental health placements because they have some violence or aggression in their history, which one would think maybe is why they would need mental health, but they aren't allowed to go to mental health placements because of that. And we're kind of calling them, for lack of a better term, our gap kids right now. And these are the kids who really, really need a lot of help, and there is nowhere for them to go. We have a kiddo right now who is not unusual, 17 years old, going to age out of the system, and literally nowhere to go. There's no foster family that will take them. There's no residential placement that will take them. And so the need is great. And as hard as everyone works at the juvenile office, I will tell you, it is very hard work. And the systems are broken, and we're working through those and doing the best that we can. But the more community we can get around us to do that work, the better. And that's what the Bridging the Gap subcommittee is trying to do. And then Stacy's going to head up our assessment tools in the fall. And that's going to partner with schools and all of the other providers. You're right here.
We are basically wanting to try to identify some assessment tools that different agencies across the county could use so we can all kind of speak the same language when we are talking about these kids. So we're getting calls from school counselors, and maybe that kiddo has also done a short stay at Lakeland, and then we're getting information on them. So if we're all utilizing the same assessment tool, we can all kind of be able to gauge where that kiddo is at and be able to talk about kind of what the needs are and how all those agencies can separately meet those needs.
So we're really excited about the collaborative. We're really excited, thank you, to come together and have such a wide array of people looking at the problem. What we say at the beginning of our committees is this is a marathon, and we're not going to solve anything today, but we have a responsibility as community leaders to be in the room and having the conversations. And if nothing else, we have to show up and do that and start moving the needle forward. And so, again, I'm just incredibly proud to work for Greene County Juvenile Office. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we do. I appreciate all of the support that Greene County gives to the juvenile office, as well as our surrounding communities. We work with amazing kids and families that need help, and it is an honor to walk alongside them. And your taxes go to good work. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any questions?
Is there an average age for the youth that you support?
Our average age right now in detention is 15. And I don't know in the office overall, probably around.
I mean, it would depend on the different types of services. Yeah. Kids that are in care for abuse and neglect are generally 5 and under. We do serve kids all the way up to age 21. And then on probation, it's similar. 15 years old is about our average age.
We work with 12 to 17, male and female, in law status.
I will just do a huge pitch. I think a lot of people think about kids in foster care and kids that are breaking the law as two different types of kids. They are not. They are the same kids. We have kids that are in foster care that are ending up in emergency rooms, living in offices, ending up in detention facilities because there is nowhere to place them. So if anybody has a huge heart and would like to be a foster care placement or a respite care, please, please, please do so. It's very important.
Yes, absolutely. And we love and need volunteers. So please reach out. I will find a place to plug you in if you want to invest in kids. So thank you. Any other questions?